All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here. It's been an amazing event already. Super excited to be sitting here with Roy today. We're talking about Raycast and also touching on a little bit of how we as designers are using AI and where we see all of this going. So super quick. I'm Felix. I'm one of the co-hosts of Quick Coffee. I also run a design studio called Blossom Design here in Berlin, and we work with a bunch of founders and startups and kind of help them build products and brands. Super excited to be here today. It's incredible to be co-hosting this event together with Nicholas from Interface. Roy, I'll let you quickly introduce yourself, and then why don't we jump in and talk a little bit about Raycast.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm Roy. I am working at Raycast. And maybe first off, I'm just curious, like, who has heard of Raycast? Oh wow!
Wow, amazing.
Who's using Raycast? And who has Raycast Pro?
Okay, now we're talking. Love it.
Right, cool. So I'm Roy. I am originally from the Netherlands, moved to Berlin about 7 years ago now. I do design, and I've always been fascinated about tooling. So when I came up as a designer, it was around the days when Sketch was the most popular design tool out there, and Sketch was quite hackable with plugins. And that was my start into like discovering how we as people and as designers can like extend tools. So I joined a hackathon in 2016, a bunch of years ago now, and it was we like with a few people in 24 hours we created a search bar tool for Sketch, which is basically literally what Raycast is for macOS, but then for Sketch. And it took off quite a bit, and I think that really opened my eyes into how extending tools and making tools do powerful things for people. And through some weird curves, I ended up at Raycast.
Lovely. Yeah, I think when I think about Raycast, it's basically this spotlight with superpowers, right? It allows you to access multiple applications within seconds. You can integrate third-party apps. Like one of my main use cases, for example, is I've got my 1Password integrated, right? So it easily allows me to quickly access passwords when I need them. And it just feels great because I kind of feel like it gives me a certain level of speed. However, obviously AI is a completely new use case for you guys. So how are you and the team thinking about the interface of Raycast and kind of how I am interacting as a user with it, combining it with a new use case, the new AI use cases?
Yeah, so we did a couple of things with AI in Raycast. First off, it's maybe for those who don't know, like it's basically a search bar in its essence that is integrated deeply into macOS, but it's extensible and it basically has access to like all of your tools, which makes it possible to like get access to 1Password, but also do like funky calculations if you need those, or a bunch of other added features. So it's quite personal. And the way we integrate AI is in a couple of ways. We have a chat version, so think ChatGPT, but then natively, always accessible wherever you are computing your computer. We have like open up Raycast, the search bar, and just type in anything, any question, any prompt that you want, and just hit tab. So I think that's the quickest way to get access to AI at any point while you are behind your machine.
Just quickly about like use cases, what do you see as being like one of the most used features when it comes to AI, or like let's say maybe prompts? Like what are people using it most for, and what are they?
Yeah, I think that's also very personal. Like a bunch of people set up very specific like coding assistants in chat. Like you can have a running chat, and then for this chat you set up a specific system prompt and a specific model that is good for this, together with the creativity or the temperature. And then having that under a hotkey to basically quickly go there and just ask it about your JavaScript project or whatever you're doing, or maybe you're cooking, actual cooking something, and then it's helping you out with a recipe. So it's very personal, but those are like different kinds of ways people set up the AI chat. And AI chat versus the other one that we call Quick AI, which is just the search bar, and then you ask the AI anything. That to me at least is more like a replacement for search. Those are two quite distinct use cases, and then there's a bit more nerdy one but we can maybe dive into that later.
Yeah. And I mean, right now, Raycast is mainly text input, right? Since we've now, also during tonight, like I've seen the many different use cases. Where do you see, Raycast going in terms of input that I'm giving as a user?
Yeah, it is mainly text inputs so far. We have access to a lot on the system because you give us access to a lot on the system. So we can, even if it's just text, like if you ask it about where would I get good Indian food, based off of it being so integrated into macOS, like that's something that could like suggest you things around it. Doesn't currently, but that's one of the maybe types of information that's a little bit more tricky to get if you are in the browser with ChatGPT. And yeah, beyond text, yeah, visual inputs is obviously going to be important as well. So when we are having access to GPT-4 Vision, then just putting up a screenshot, or we have access to all your screenshots if you want to. So you make a screenshot, or you grab a photo from somewhere and then use that as an input to then do something smart with it, whatever it is that you want.
When we talk like generally about LLMs and how Raycast is positioning itself, I mean, thinking about LLMs, they are pretty broad, right? You can give an input and it's not really giving a unique output in a way. How are you making sure that like where do you see Raycast position itself, and how do you think about this whole idea of LLMs being rather broad, and how do you stand out with a tool like Raycast?
Yeah, so the fact that LLMs are so like generic in a way because they're so large, I think is in a way a good thing for a lot of use cases. Right now we rely on OpenAI a lot, but in theory, in the future, when we have open source models, well, they are already there, but we don't have them integrated. They could be good for the majority of use cases. And if we know whatever it is you're prompting, that it's fine to use like the local model for it, then it's so much faster than doing the API call and everything. So I think that's one cool thing. And besides that, it's more about personalizing it. So all the tools that you're using and all the context that we can get from you, from your calendar, from your email, potentially from files on your machine, from the way you go throughout your day working. Like you open up Figma if you're a designer and you do some stuff there, and then you find a ticket in Linear. Like all of that context we could take and then do something with it. But this is it's also very early days for us, but this is definitely something we're trying to explore to just make it more personalized.
Yeah, personalization I find super interesting. I can already see it with my own Raycast. Like I just type in F and it automatically suggests Figma instead of Finder, right? Because it's just a tool I use on it.
Yeah, that's so simple, but it's so powerful as well. And I think it's one of the features why it's just better than Spotlight. Like I think once your Raycast doesn't work and you realize like Spotlight has to take over and it doesn't do those things, then yeah, you really miss it.
That's interesting. Like what do you see as like, if you would, I mean, Raycast does multiple things, but comparing it to Spotlight, what's the one or two things that truly stand out, right? In your opinion, since you're like working on it and like are kind of trying to improve it on a daily basis.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's also hard for ourselves because it's so different for so many people. There's not really one feature that nails it for everyone. I think the calculator is a good one, which sounds silly, but is really good because it's like you will have access to like currency conversion or a smarter way of calculating time. Like what is the time now in SF, or what is time in how many days until XYZ? Right? Usually we'll need something like Google for this to do it, or some website that looks like it's from the 90s. I think that's pretty powerful for a lot of users. Clipboard history is a good feature. AI in general, like a lot of people, are fans of the way AI is available, like system-wide, rather than having to go somewhere for it.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, now that you're relying basically on most of the AIs that are out there, how are you thinking about building your own AI, or like how is Raycast AI different to ChatGPT, for example?
I think the fundamental difference between Raycast AI and ChatGPT, because the underlying model is pretty much the same, right? We both use GPT 4 or all of the models from OpenAI. I think the fundamental difference is that it's, well, OpenAI has a bit more access to the newest features, but you have to use their website or their mobile app for it. With Raycast, it's simply available everywhere because on your Mac, because it's running natively. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think what I'm also quite interested in is this like topic that I slightly mentioned in the beginning. Kind of, Raycast is one tool that, a bunch of people are using, but also we as designers can access to help us automate or like improve certain workflows. Now, if we think a little bit deeper, what do you see? How do you see some of your workflows change with AI evolving, and specifically thinking about, you working as a UX UI designer, using tools like Raycast, but also Figma. Where do you see, things are going, and what is changing, in your opinion?
Yeah, honestly, it's really difficult to design for AI, I would say, in Figma, because Figma is just the drawing tool, right? And it's the types of outputs that you can get, and then designing for that's really tricky. And I think the tools should really evolve there. And I think we've been talking about design systems for many, many years right now, which I feel is still going to be fundamental. But I imagine that like when chat is something we use now a lot, I think chat will start to evolve and become more like generated UIs. So we've already seen this, like, I guess about 10 years ago when we had chatbots where they said it was very straightforward, but you would go on booking.com and you would have to do something, and then the chatbot would ask you some stuff and you could basically reply A or B. That was already a generated interface basically, but I think that will become much more advanced, where when we're personalizing so many things, then you would get the option to, whatever it is. And I think that generative way of working is not really possible in tools like Figma. So we either have to hope that other tools are coming out, or Figma is going to do something about this, or we'll have to be like creative and basically like Linus did, like go into building our own custom tooling to see if we can do stuff like this.
Yeah. I mean, I find it so fascinating because I feel like the way also my work has changed is already quite crazy, right? I feel like execution, so like me really spending hours, like I used to spend like hours really fine-tuning a certain UI design, right? I feel like now there are already certain kind of tools that I can use, such as like, I don't know, like a Figma plugin that allows me to clean up my design system, which just allow me to be like way more efficient when it comes to creating products and designing products. And I see Raycast as one of these tools, right, that can help me work smarter with things. But it's also scary, right? Because now, that there are tools that I could, simply ask a question and they give me an output and I can use that output. I don't even have to think about it that much anymore. I feel like the entire industry would
You're
change.
still needed in the meantime, though. Like you're the one sort of orchestrating it all, I think, and making those decisions of where it needs to go. I think just being able to work with the tools is going to be super important. And in the long run, we'll probably not draw rectangles at least anymore. At least I hope. I hope we won't draw rectangles anymore in a couple of years.
Yeah, but I think that's exactly like where I'm trying to go. Like, how do you think this will change? Because, right, I think now the job of the designer has always been, obviously you still need to do your research. You sit down, you start wireframing, right? You do one wireframe, you run a test, you do another wireframe, you run a test, you iterate over time, you improve it. Now with AI, right, there are options to like test multiple wireframes at the same time with a bunch of different data points. So, as you said, it will be more about orchestrating the different kinds of tools. Pat and I actually have talked about in one of our quick coffee episodes about this idea of you're more like the film director using different kinds of cameras to create like this one movie, right? But it's no longer you sitting in every single driver's seat to ensure that like every single output is being generated correctly. So
I think that's a good analogy, but it's indeed like not really. There are not really tools out there currently that would allow you to approach it this way, as far as I know. I think it will move there though, and it's a bit of a holy grail. But I think as designers directly contributing to the actual product, like we're still drawing pictures, and then engineers are gonna copy and paste pictures in a different format, and then put that in the product. And there's a lot of back and forth there to actually, make it the way that one person intended it, or a group of people. So I think there's a big leap to make there, where AI can also be could be useful. I don't think that's something at Raycast we're going to do, but at least we can support the whole way of working with our extension ecosystem and all of the tools that we're working on.
I think I have one more specific product question. Are you building Raycast using Raycast?
In a way we are. We have some internal commands, and obviously, sometimes because the UI is so like dynamic, right? Sometimes you take a screenshot and you design over it. That's not really fair. Yeah, we have a bunch of internal tools that just make it easier for us to generate stuff, but in the end we still do a bunch of our work in Figma.
Yeah, so just the reality of being a product designer in 2024. Any questions regarding Raycast? I know we're all hungry.
We'll take 2 questions.
Yeah, just one quick question, because Raycast, right, is also text-based. I mean, you're kind of putting in that prompt, let's say, and you end up with different flows. Is there any kind of process that you have in the design that's different from if you design traditional apps? Because, for example, we also design for search, or now also with some AI assistant, and you have to suddenly design on a higher level to allow for more variety underneath, which you cannot control in a way.
Yeah, honestly, because not really, not in Figma. We just go to prototypes, actual working prototypes, much quicker, and then test a bunch of things internally for a while. I think that's the best way to go, because there's no point in trying to mimic UIs this way, creating variations, because it's so manual still, right? And then sure, it will probably the UI will probably break at some point, and some of those things you can test just by thinking through what the possibilities are. Do I have 2 sentences of text that I get back, or do I have a whole page of words? And but yeah, I think the easiest way is to just work closely with the engineers and see what the working prototype internally is coming back with, and then fix it from there.
So prototype, you really mean actual implemented product that you test.
Yeah, especially also because it's a bit more difficult to for native macOS development to sort of make prototypes, I guess. I think on the web you can hack away a little bit easier than for Mac. So it's just close collaboration mostly.
Last question.
Lots of internal builds.
I'm wondering, for example, now ChatGPT or OpenAI trying to extend its own functionality by accessing certain tools or accessing different LLMs so that actually they can do more than they can do. I think Raycast has a very good position because you have access to all the tools. So do you plan anything user just say, I want to do this, and you create a workflow for them or suggest them a workflow, and then it happens? Do you have any features or plan like that?
Yeah, we're definitely exploring this. I think it will always be key that the user will stay in control. So it's quite scary if Raycast, with all its access to your file system and everything else, to just go ahead and do stuff. I don't think we should ever. So the users should stay in control, and therefore I also think that the whole generative UIs is going to becoming quite important, because you just want to visually see, or whatever format it is, you want to see that it's what it's going to do and then confirm or not. But yeah, we can do a lot on the file system and on macOS that ChatGPT can't. Plus, we're not really bound to the OpenAI models. We're at least internally experimenting with different models, with Perplexity and with some other ones, which is another potential way of making a standout from these bigger companies that are set with their own models.
Well, I have a ton of questions, but I just gonna ask one. I think I saw on Twitter that you recently filed a patent for the Raycast UI for the design. if I'm not mistaken. There was at least a tweet about that. Okay, maybe first, is this true? And second, what is the idea behind it? Why did you do it? And third, what does this tell us about the future of Raycast?
I've been on parental leave for like 2 months, so I'm not sure about the patent. I know that Raycast has been copied a lot by a lot of people. Yeah, so our extension ecosystem is pretty open, so it's also therefore pretty open to just yeah, sort of use those extensions for your own little tool that you've built. I don't think it's worth it to put in so much effort to try to like rebuild Raycast. It's much more than a launcher of apps, but that happens. Yeah, I'm not so sure about the patent if that's the thing. What was your second question?
Well, yeah, if it's true, but okay, and third, what does it tell us about the future? So you're not planning to build a hardware device that looks like a Raycast launcher.
No, no hardware. No, we're gonna stay as a like toolbox for a while.
Cool.
No hardware, but I remember the two of us also chatting about this whole idea of Raycast moving into the direction of browser. I'm not sure how much you can tell us, but since I guess, a bunch of people might also use Arc browser, would be interesting to see, how's Raycast trying to position themselves compared to Arc browser when you guys think about, this whole idea of, bringing AI to the browsing experience.
Yeah, that's a good question because we are working on a browser extension. Just because with a URL we cannot do that much for good reasons like security and all. So if we are in the browser with an extension, then having access to all the context of the page itself is really powerful for people to then do something with it. And Arc just has it really nicely integrated because they are a browser and you just Command F and you ask stuff about the page. I think that's really neat. But then again, yeah, we're working on basically something similar to also get you the power of your browsing context. But yeah, we're also system-wide, and therefore we're not going to make a browser, but we're going to integrate browsers.
And maybe last question, how are you thinking about like mobile experiences? Because right now it's mainly on desktop, right? But
yeah, so it's currently only on macOS. That served us well so far, but the need or ask for Raycast on mobile devices has been there for a while, and yeah, we are working on that. No promises on anything released soon, but we are working on a mobile version phone for Raycast.
Lovely. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I think the food is ready for you to have a look at. Yeah, cheers. Thanks for listening.